to, you know, hanging out with me, I guess. Um, Today, I'm gonna do some, like, tapping. Um, just on some random things I have on my desk. Um, I'm gonna also kind of ramble. I think that's kind of becoming my thing lately. It's kind of just rambling and tapping on things. Um, as for what you see in the background, I have a game called No Man's Sky, just kind of sitting there. I thought it'd be nice to have kind of like a space thing in the background. I don't know, some people might find it relaxing, or at least aesthetically pleasing. I don't like having random, like, backgrounds. Well, I mean, I guess this is a random background, yeah. But I mean, like, I don't like having, like, a color gradient or just a black screen for, like, my rambles and tapping. For the role plays, it's a different story, because the majority of the time you're kind of listening. I mean, you're listening to this too, but with role plays, I feel like you listen to them and you're, like, actively doing something else. I don't know. So last night, right, I was speaking to a friend of mine who their birthday recently just passed, and, you know, they were telling me about it, and, they were saying that they didn't really have a good time, and of course I inquired as to why that was. Because it's your birthday, you should have a good time. You know, that's like the one day out of the entire year that we get to be just a little bit narcissistic, I believe. You know, it's a day about us. Granted, you want everybody else to enjoy themselves too, but it's also like, it's a time where people are celebrating you, your birth, your time of being alive. And, you know, it made them feel like, you know, not very good about the fact that everybody that did show up to their party kind of just did their own thing without really, you know, giving giving them the attention in some way. And I guess, like, the point of me bringing it up is that, um, the point of me bringing it up is that, you don't have to deal with certain things, right? We tend to put up with things because we feel that that is our only way of getting. I don't know why I said getting that way. Of getting that. You know what I mean? Like, the biggest example I can bring up is like unhealthy relationships. And I'm a firm believer of being able to work through things and fix things through dedication, commitment, and compromise. Um, and I'm no saint, so I definitely am aware of certain mindsets when it comes to like toxicity and unhealthiness. Um, and we put up with a lot of things from an unhealthy person because we think that, oh, maybe they're just having a bad day, or this is who they are, this is how they've been raised, this is all they know. But you don't always have to put up with it, right? Like, if somebody is in your life and they're constantly you know bringing you down, you don't have to deal with that. You don't have to put up with people's bullshit, because at the end of the day, the right people will be in your life because they care about you, right? A lot of the people that we force ourselves to enjoy or be around, they are not always the ones that we need because they're the ones that we want. And that's not to say that every situation is immediately toxic, right? Because there are times where we need to blow up. There are times that we need to get our feelings out as people. Building up or having all this stored negative energy does make us sour, and it can lead to toxic habits. But there's also a level of understanding that everybody needs to have when it comes to other people and how they deal with emotions, right? Like, if your partner comes home and gives you a little bit of attitude, our first reaction is to get defensive, because it's like, well, why are you giving me attitude if your day was bad? I didn't have anything to do with it. But that's not the point, right? The point is that they're having a bad day, right? And they don't have that outlet to get rid of those negative feelings at that moment. And so, in a lot of situations, we tend to argue back or yell back, or return an attitude because we feel that we don't deserve that energy. And we don't. Don't get me wrong, you don't deserve to be given an attitude. But it happens, right? And it's okay. And this is what a lot of people, myself included, don't understand is that it's okay to not be defensive. If somebody throws attitude at you, you don't always have to jump onto an aggressive approach. You can sit down and ask them, hey, what's going on? Or you seem stressed. Is there something I can do for you? Right? Because if you meet somebody with a negative response, you're slowly burning that bridge with said person, right? Because then every time that this person, or your partner, I guess was the example, comes home and they're having a bad day, we're creating the narrative that they can't approach you with their issues. Maybe your partner doesn't know how to communicate how they feel, right? And a lot of people nowadays don't understand how to communicate their problems. And there's nothing wrong with not being able to communicate your problems, so long as you understand them yourself. I'm not very good at speaking about my issues, right? But I'm a great writer. So I'll sit down and write you 8 paragraphs or 8 pages worth of how I'm feeling, because it's easier for me to express how I feel that way. Maybe your partner expresses themselves in ways that you don't like, or ways that you don't want them to, and it's never a problem to just talk to people, right? To express, hey, you blowing up on me made me feel like this. Is there a better way that we can handle this, right? Nobody wants to do that. Nowadays, it's either you get it right the first time or you don't get it right at all. And it's kind of fucked up because everybody wants the right treatment from everybody else without offering that themselves, right? And that comes to a lot of the problems that we have with interpersonal relationships nowadays. And that leads back to my friend who isn't capable of expressing themselves to their friends, and at least in a good way. And this leads to a lot of clashing because you don't understand one another. And that clashing results in a lot of miscommunication and then eventually a lot of secrecy. And that's how we push people away from one another very often, is not allowing themselves to be vulnerable, or not allowing themselves to be wrong, right? We always want to be right. We don't want to believe that we're wrong, especially in situations where we may have wronged somebody. We don't want to sit there and think, oh, well, I did it because of X, Y, and Z, so I'm justified. Well, maybe you're not justified to that person. And that's where a lot of issues are present when it comes to friendships, relationships, and even day-to-day activities with random strangers, is that we're not going to sit there and want to learn what another person is thinking, how they feel, what makes them tick, what makes them smile. We don't want to do that because we want to be, we want to preserve ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with self-preservation. However, it's also great to understand other people, because that furthers your self-preservation by being able to identify what makes another person upset, or what makes them sad, or angry, and so on and so forth. But nowadays, again, a lot of people don't want to have to work through all of the nitty gritty. And it's sad, because everybody deserves to have somebody who loves them and appreciates them, right? But unconditional love isn't unconditional tolerance. You can have boundaries in your relationships with people without ruining that relationship with that person. I, for example, it's kind of funny. I don't like when people like squish my stomach for some reason. It's never been a thing for me. And I had an old friend of mine from high school used to do that a lot. And I remember one time I kind of like blew up, and she didn't understand it because it's harmless in her eyes. But to me, it's like it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel okay, right? It's like when people don't like when others are standing behind them, or people with like misophonia, um, misophonia. I don't know the pronunciation, but it's okay to set boundaries, right? I remember explaining to her, like, hey, listen, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. Can you please stop doing that? And she respected that. And I went on to explain that maybe it was something from my childhood that I don't remember, or maybe something happened to me. Well, yeah, I guess in my childhood. That's the only real explanation for it. I still don't really know what it is to this day, but I just don't like people touching me. um, Actually, I lied. I do know why I don't like people touching me, but that's not here nor there. But we all have our reasons for why we don't like certain things, and it's good to identify why we don't like certain things, right? And I learned in my 2-year absence that our one emotion, our immediate response to something is always, and I truly mean always, connected to a million different other things, right? So your anger could be your base emotion, right? But you're also sad, right? You're frustrated, you're confused, and those have their subgenres of emotions. Your confusion could be a lack of understanding, never experiencing something before, not understanding what to do in a situation. And eventually, by picking apart every emotion, we start to understand the narrative behind why we feel certain things. And again, I think a lot of people should be more attentive to how we deal with others, and try to be more understanding. It's easy to just point a finger when somebody's really upset and say, oh, you're toxic. And there are some people that genuinely are toxic. I've met them. But a lot of people, by having one blow up, aren't toxic. They're just having a moment of negative release. And you may not like it, or they may not like the way that you express that, and that to them immediately ties to the word as toxic. don't really even remember the moral of the story. I think the moral was just you don't have to deal with people that you don't want to deal with. You are free to do what you want when it comes to your relationships with people. If you feel like somebody is not for you or benefiting you in any way, shape, or form, you have the right to cut that person off. You have the right to not speak to them or slowly just kind of fade away. You have that right. But don't just label them as toxic without really learning them and understanding, I guess. But anyways, I probably got a lot of things, I probably said a lot of things that people don't agree with, and that's okay. These are just the things that I've learned going through counseling and a lot of self-discovery, and I don't know. Anyways, um, I made a poll earlier today about what I should be doing within the next few days. So, yeah, vote, comment, do whatever you feel like you want to do. And, I guess I'll see you soon.